Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Stan Pinnell. I'm a senior account executive here at Revelwood, and I'm joined by my colleague Dominic, who will be showing you today's overview demo of adaptive planning here in a few moments. Now, I just want to take a few minutes to give you an idea of what to expect today. First, some background on Revelwood. We are a platinum business partner of Workday, and what that means is that we are part of an extremely select group of partners that help you evaluate and implement adaptive planning. We have over 25 years of experience, and we're made up of a diverse team of certified experienced consultants that bring decades of financial operations and system know-how. We've implemented over 150 adaptive customers over the past several years, and this continues to grow. Not only that, but we also help existing adaptive customers with model enhancements, integrations, support services, and one-on-one training. I'm aware that some of you may be here because you have an active initiative to get into a cloud FP&A solution, and some of you may just be here to learn or you're curious. Either way, we greatly appreciate you taking 15 minutes with us in the next few days just to have a quick chat and see what your current challenges are, if you have any feedback, or whether there are resources that we can follow up with. An important thing to know is that the demo today is meant to just really give you a glimpse into what adaptive planning can do. It should be finished in 45 minutes. During that time, everyone is on mute, but if you have a question, there is a question and answer button down at the bottom. Please enter it there and we will try to get to it. If not, we will make sure we get back to you via email. I wanted to take a moment to share a handful of logos we have personally worked with at Revelwood to help implement and ensure a successful onboarding experience of Workday Adaptive Planning. As you can see by the logo slide, we have experience in many different industries and different sizes and shapes of organizations. I only have a few slides before we get started with the demo. First, adaptive planning is a place where you can do your modeling, reporting, and analytics all in one place. So everything that you need is in one solution, and it will act as your central source of truth, if you will. So typically we're talking with finance teams, and of course we're pulling in the general ledger data, but adaptive can connect to really any data source that you may need it to, because at the end of the day, data is data, and you'll be able to bring all that data together into one place to model and report on with confidence. And this slide gives you an idea of some of the areas of the business that you can model and plan using adaptive. So as you can see, many different use cases and many different parts of the organization. Definitely adaptive planning is not limited to just your core FP&A. You can model out really any operational area of the business that you want with adaptive. So I'm sure you're thinking, this is really awesome stuff, Stan, but what separates adaptive from the rest of the pack? Great question, everyone. Now or today, adaptive runs on what's known as elastic hypercube technology, which is a patented Workday technology, and this is a key competitive differentiator. I'm not going to talk about all the technical specifics because it is important for the webinar, but the reason it is key is because it makes the solution scalable and able to have an unlimited number of dimensions, unlimited number of versions, scenarios, etc. And when your system needs more processing power, the system is intelligent and expands to give it to you. But what's equally important is that you have this power without losing ease of use and maintainability. As you will see in the demo today, everything is extremely intuitive with drag and drop functionality so that the end users can own this system without assistance from IT. And that's why Adaptive has almost 6,000 customers globally in all the industries. This is way more than any of our competitors in the FP&A solution space. Did you know that Adaptive has a 95% gross retention rate? We're very proud to speak to that. It shows the viability and maintainability of Adaptive as one of the top FP&A vendors. And this is growing rapidly. As you can see, this is across all of the different types of industries. Our commitment to innovation and customer success is recognized by the industry. It's a product that gets the highest user ratings and delivers business agility in times of change, and you can expect the software to be easy to use, implement, and maintain as your business scales. Being ranked number one ease of use, customer experience, satisfaction, usability, and best return on investment. This should make you very excited to see Dominic's demo now. So we will go ahead and switch over to let Dominic take you through a brief demonstration of the solution.
Thank you, Stan. So good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Dominic Nguyen. I have a strong, extensive background in finance. Actually started my career in finance, building a lot of Excel models, reporting packages. I've been in this space for quite a long time, very familiar with the solution. Done also a lot of consulting in the space, so feel free to ask questions towards the end, or we'll gather those questions and answer any questions you may have. So we'll get started with kind of a quick overview. So one of the keys or values is that, the adaptive planning platform is very flexible, right? So to be able to get information and access it from different types of browsers, mobile devices, it's a 100% cloud application. It's a very robust, scalable, all the things that Stan had mentioned. I'll start off from a high level. We'll look at some basics, and then we'll dive into some forecasting best practices, right? So all the different types of forecasting techniques that you can deploy, and how intuitive and easy it is for organizations to streamline their processes. Then we'll close it out with some reporting. But we'll start off with high-level dashboards. So what these are the ability to set up different types of metrics, whether it's personal dashboards, one for the executive team, one for the finance organizations. You can bring in all types of information. But what's nice is, even though you're starting at a very high level, it's easy to drill down on the appropriate details, right? So if I want to see revenue by product, or who's buying my products, or where are they being purchased from different locations, it's really intuitive to just visualize information, see it, drill down to the details that's required. Other really good examples in terms of scorecarding, or seeing information from a target versus actual, or versus plan or forecast, and seeing those immediate details. As well as setting up what we call key performance indicators, whether they're financial KPIs or specific ones for sales or inventory or production. The sky is really the limit, right? The ability to set up all these different types of metrics, because we can kind of take you above and beyond kind of the general ledger basics, and kind of get you to information that, whether it's employee type metrics, ASP, AR, a lot of common industries that we work with. But overall, it's very easily intuitive to drag and drop and bring information that is relevant for your business. One use case is very, if you just prefer to have some of these things be able to provide to you, we have this snapshot schedule, which is really the ability to create a snapshot of this information that gets emailed to you. So in case you wanted to set something that's more recurring, right, you can have these snapshots provided to the executives. They can kind of look at it and see if there's any anomalies, and easily do that and set up the frequency that you want. So pretty powerful, but overall, a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to do many different processes. I do want to talk a little bit about some key best practices in terms of forecasting. Traditionally, with the forecasting, you have the ability to do top-down forecasting, right? So more of a global top-down. We'll talk a little bit about that. Bottoms up, very traditional. Driver-based, right? So how we can model things from different assumptions and drivers. And adding another layer to that in the industry is being able to do more artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, which is something we'll also introduce and talk about today. So I'm still looking at a dashboard here, but one thing that's noticed is we'll start off with is the top level ability to kind of do a forecasting from a top level perspective. So in this case, it's more of a sensitivity analysis, and this is kind of signifying that, you can do a top-down adjustment on, potentially these are your baseline products, but if you've got potentially an economic situation where you might see kind of a downtrend in a certain project, you can adjust that at a top level for that product category. In this case, 80%, or I can, come through and do it month by month, similar to what I've done here. So what's nice about this is once you do that and save it, right? You can see its impact across the entire application. So once you do that, you get the immediate index. So it's really interacting with the information, more active dashboards within the interface, right? So that's one pretty option. Another one is to be able to do what we call more intelligent planning. So another way from a dashboard perspective is to set up predictions and assumptions around adjusting forecasts based on some predictability, right? So in addition to things like anomaly detection, but ultimately you can have some of these assumptions. We'll get into a little bit more detailed on how we may do that. But ultimately at the high level, you can get, a predictive units sold or how many units I think I'm going to forecast, and maybe kind of tie that into your inventory and backlogs and really give you insight into your business. So but overall, we'll talk about today from a forecasting best practices, top down, bottoms up, driver base, as well as some machine learning, artificial intelligence. Before I do that, I want to introduce you to a couple key concepts. I think one is the organizational level hierarchy. I think that's important. It is unique and it's also flexible. So you can set it up in many different ways. You may have multiple companies, international operations. You can do it by departments, lines of businesses, sales locations, territories. But it's really twofold, right? Number one is its ability to consolidate data and aggregation of data. Oftentimes in an Excel environment, it's very cumbersome, it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of errors in that process. Well, you can configure this for your business and have all those roll up for you as you make changes from each owner at the budget level or department owner. You save it, it consolidates all that up. Right. So no more of the shipping the templates around. I've got one tab for one department, 20 tabs for 20 departments. So the overall time it takes to do this will be, streamlined, and so you can focus all your time on the analysis portion. Secondly, what's also important is the security aspect. So if I have access only to my department, I'm only allowed to budget and forecast within my department. You can organize security through that. So again, this organizational level hierarchy, as you can see, is just an example, but very configurable to your business. A couple other key concepts that we will talk about is data. We alluded to that a little bit with Stan, but we're very flexible and agnostic to systems. So whether it's, a certain type of ERP like Oracle or NetSuite or Great Plains, Microsoft Dynamics, or even industry-specific things like Deltek, et cetera. So we have the flexibility to bring in all kinds of information. And so the way we can bring it in through a full integration platform is all embedded within the platform, so you can automate that process. That's very popular, right? So run something at schedule at night, bring all your actuals in, and then come in the morning, it's all available. We can also bring in information through an Excel flat file. Things like personnel data oftentimes isn't as frequent, so you can bring that in and do that like manually once a month. So really the caveat is how often you bring that in. But overall, data is very important, and we can bring all types of systems. Next, so we talk a little bit about versions. One of the things is, creating a new version often is a bottleneck in normal manual Excel type environments. The reason why is it's just, very difficult. Making sure all the numbers and, doing all of that is very, very, tedious. So we've got the ability to set up many different scenarios or versions. Some use cases or examples is you may have a last year budget. We can bring that in and do security around that. We can lock that down, right? If you're working within the working budget, build out the budget, right? Because that's really kind of the traditional planning budgeting process, right? You start it, and then you build your budgets, and then you kind of submit it up to approval, goes through the process, and then you're done, right? So why we're here today really is the value of the system, in my opinion, is not about budgeting, it's about forecasting. So I've got the ability to create additional forecasts, like maybe you have a 5-year long range forecast, maybe you have a current 3+9 forecast, and you'll see some of this in a little bit. But overall, the ability to take a budget that's completed, seed that forecast with the original budget, and as actual starts flowing in, you can see the first 3 months of actuals and reforecasts more often, right? That's the key. Be able to do this more often, spend more time, adjusting to your business conditions and making better decisions, as well as creating different what if scenarios, right? Should I embark on this new project or product line, or should I do an acquisition? How does that impact my cash flow, my P&L? But overall, unlimited dimensions and unlimited scenarios allows you to do that. Right, perfect. We'll move on to a little bit more in greater detail, and we'll start off with kind of a high-level P&L. Then we'll get into kind of the blocking and tackling of planning and forecasting. So what you have here is a very high-level P&L. One of the benefits is that we talked about this hierarchy, right? So this P&L right now is organized by total company. So as you notice, you can have a visual into, revenue, margins, cost of goods sold. But it's very simple to have a departmental P&L, because this organizational hierarchy, in essence, is a departmental P&L, right? So if you have access only to your department, you can now see, how revenue, margins, expenses, all the way down to net income and how that's doing. But one nice thing about this is that you can also toggle and see more of a top-down view if you have access, obviously, at the entire organization. So maybe an executive CFO level or director of finance who now can focus on a specific product category, right? And you can also see how it's organized across all rest of the organization through the department. So more of a top-down view. So you can also, in this case, if it was available, and right now it's all grayed out, so you can't make any adjustments to it, but there's flexibility for you to make kind of a top-down adjustment here at the entire product revenue for the entire organization. So if you had that capability, you could kind of highlight that something and do kind of a top-down view or a top-down adjustment from there. Let's actually move on to take a look at traditional forecasting, expense planning. So we'll start here with kind of an expense summary, right? So again, same value proposition. I've now got it focused on one department, right? I'm in the Sales North department, and that information will get rolled up to total company for me based on that hierarchy. If you look at things, it looks a little bit different in terms of you've got actuals flowing in, which is 2023, which is total year. Each individual user has the flexibility to look at multiple years, multiple information going forward, forecast out for the next 12 months, next 5 years. It's really up to you. But what this is it's a copy of the working budget once it was completed, and then January through March of 24, which are also actual. So it's simulating the 3+9 forecasting concept, where I've got my 3 months of actual, so that I can use that to do traditional forecasting, right? So as I do that, I can kind of go through and pick an account here. In this case, the white cells, similar to what we do, is we allow certain inputs for cells that are white for end users, so we can control that, right? So I'm going to start off with the basic bottoms up forecasting, right? So in this case here, I'm going to type in $1,000. I can manually copy that to the end there, nothing fancy. I can also do things like grow that value by, or increase it or decrease it by value or percent. In this case, I'll increase it by 5%. So as you kind of going through your traditional forecasting of bottoms up, you can say, okay, maybe there's a mandate for this particular expense that I can only spend a certain amount for the total year. So if that's the case, I can do that and break it back proportionally if there's already existing data. Because remember, we can take the original working budget, seed the forecast with that, and as you see those numbers, it can break that back proportionally. This is actually very popular to be able to break back that number based on prior year actuals, based on seasonality, right? So again, other common methods, and also this is very powerful in terms of being able to set up your own assumptions and drivers based on the method that you want. But overall, we'll break this back based on prior year's actuals to kind of spread that back based on kind of the trend of last year's actuals, right? So that's one option, right? So be able to do things more of a bottoms up. Another thing that we could do here is we can do what we call driver base. And I'll go through a couple examples where you may take, in this example, we're looking at 6340, the telephone expense. Just take that and say, maybe copy it with a prior month, right? Pretty simple. Just hit the equal sign, similar to Excel. I'm going to reference it from, a couple months back and say that's what I want to use. So you can see that that's replicating February, right? So another option is you can, come in here and do more advanced forecasting techniques, right? So in this case here, let's assume I didn't know what my account was, right? I can actually just drill down on the hierarchy of all my different accounts, or I can just very easily search on that. But in this example, I'm going to actually take some time intelligence and say, I want to use Q1 of 2024, right? So it's going to take that, and maybe you want to take the totals, or maybe you want to take the average of that. But again, just kind of simulating some flexible options. So in this example, I'm going to take the average of the first quarter, right? So driving that. And so when you take a look at the first quarter here, right, you can see that the average is 296, right? So 296 is exactly what is the result there, right? So again, so you can do things like take the full year. You can do things like, custom formulas around that. So again, just kind of driving some of that is another great example. Another example I could do is I can take an entire range of cells and do an adjustment, right? So very quickly I could say, again, maybe I want to decrease this by 3% or a certain value, right? So I can just do that. Notice that as I'm doing this, right, its impact changes to blue, which is really just saying it's changes in memory, and you can see the totals across and down. And then once you're happy with it, you can just save it off, right? So that consolidation, and I'm working at one department, but you can have 10 department owners interacting with it. As they make those changes, then they can, roll up and consolidate automatically. Another aspect, and we'll stick on the same account here, is, we can say, we want to reference that. So again, same concept. I want to take this account, right? But I want to do more of a driver-based calculation. So what we do is we can set up different drivers, and I'll just use inflation rate as an example, right? So let's say I wanted to do, that times some kind of inflation factor, right? So in this example here, I'm going to take the same account, but I'm going to drive it by a inflation rate driver, which is very common, right? So in this case here, I've got that information, but, once you set up the drivers and so forth, then you can easily do that, right? So, but overall, where do you manage those drivers, right? So in this example, I'm going to take that number, right? And I can say, multiply that by some kind of inflation rate driver. So this is kind of where you would manage some of those drivers. So in this example here, I can take that number and change the driver to a certain percent, save it, and it's going to automatically update based on those drivers, right? So really it's just kind of more driver-based planning in terms of being able to do some of that, from, if we kind of quickly review, we can do things from a bottoms up, right? So this example, I could take, numbers and just enter data. I can also take numbers and, do kind of the out of the box functionality, which I showed you, right? So we can do that. We can also do more of an adjustment, times, some kind of adjustment by some different ranges of cells that you want to do, right? So in this example, you can do that pretty easily. So, or you can kind of use more what we call predictive capabilities, which I'll go into next. But I think overall, just kind of showing you that a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to do some of that, information. So as we kind of come back to kind of where we are, in this example here, we can take that account times that inflation rate factor. So everything's kind of based off of that, and that changes based on the global driver that you have. What's also nice is as you doing the forecast, you probably want to analyze information. So analyzing information allows you to kind of what we call drill into some of the details. I'm actually going to drill into this salaries and wages account. And it's something that is very flexible to be able to see and drill down on that information to see the salary expense for my department employees. We can also restrict that, right? So if you don't want people to drill into that salary detail, you can do that. But other popular example is just the kind of seeing some graphing, trending of certain expense. Obviously, salary expense, you can kind of see, okay, kind of what the trend is for the year. And obviously, you can also look at things like bonuses and bring it into different types of charts and graphs, right? So the analytical capabilities from you looking at forecasting is very powerful. As you notice, I'm just pointing and clicking. There's no scripting languages I'm doing. It's very easy, very intuitive, a lot of power. Obviously, you can crawl, walk, run throughout the projects, but kind of give you just a quick sample of all the different forecasting basics. Next, I want to talk a little bit about forecasting, but it's going to be adding a little bit more of kind of a modern way or another option. I talked about being able to do things from, predictive forecasting. So we can still also set up, options for you to help predict some of the expenses. And this is kind of some quick examples, but you can kind of identify, like then we're on office supplies and I want to make that as an adjustment of a 30%, from there, you can also determine, if you want to use it as an intelligent planning, you want to go zero-based, you want to use trending, right? So these are just quick examples for you to say, I want to focus on these 4 accounts, and ultimately the results, sorry, the results could be, based on that, you have a baseline, expense, but then you also based on predictive capabilities can provide you a different result, right? So ultimately, you can also determine how you want to, handle some of the forecasting basics. And at the end of the day, what you're going to have is, once you do all of this, is you're going to have some kind of reporting as output to all of this, right? So this is a really good quick example of being able to look at, a variance report, right? Actual versus budget. You get to kind of see some of these filters. We didn't talk a lot about some other basics, but I think, one of the things that's very nice is being able to see some of the notes that if you put notes in some of the processes, it flows over to the reports. They act like cell notes in the templates, but they flow over to the reports automatically. Helps with the collaboration, accountability, right? So less of the emailing and asking why. You get to see, all of this right within the system, right? So in this case here, we're looking at actual budget, but it's very easy to use in terms of our reporting. And one of the things that we've been working on is, being able to look at our forecast. So I'll just drag and drop over, the forecasts here. And obviously you can design these reports pretty much any way you want. We'll keep it simple. We can bring in our forecast version, right? So you can kind of get the actual versus budget. If you want to compare actual versus forecast and those variances by month, by year to date, by rolling 12 months, again, the sky is really the limit. But notice that I just use my mouse. It's all drag and drop. A lot of finance organizations love the fact that it's so easy, intuitive to get up and running and get value out of the system quickly. I'll kind of talk a little bit about one more report because I think it's good to see, how we can also leverage our forecasting best practices, right? So we also can leverage the machine learning forecasts and get you a report that outlines based on those predictive values, right? What is it predicting us? In this case, from if we use a certain method, from how many units we're going to sell, what's going to net revenue going to be for the year or multiple years. But a lot of flexibility around reporting. And this is just kind of showing you that, we have a lot of capability around being able to set up, different reports, from variance reports, things that help you from machine learning to lining up all the different scenarios, which is very popular, right? Best case, worst case scenarios. Maybe want to model a new project or a new acquisition, and kind of play around with some of those different drivers that I have provided, and kind of line them up and see what they are, right? So, and really, it's about getting information quickly. It's really about getting value out of this information, so that way you can make strategic decisions. There are a lot of other examples that we could probably go into. I'll just go through a couple really quickly. So you can see we can design this pretty flexibly. So personnel planning is another popular area, as well as revenue. And we'll just take a peekaboo of this. But in essence, we can bring in personnel data, as I talked about, right? We can plan and forecast this information, name, title, start, end dates, health benefits, and we can drive all these costs. What's really nice about this is once you get the initial roster in, as you learn how to plan for new hires, in this example, it's all really intuitive. And, if you wanted to forecast a new consultant based on the state that you pick, it's going to calculate the taxes. All the assumptions and drivers are handled for you. So it's really that simple, right? So adding a new hire at the individual department owner, right? Because every department owner is going to have their forecast, and then it's going to link back up to the P&L of the summary. So earlier when I showed you how we drilled into those numbers and seeing the salaries expense, and it's very also simple to see all the associated costs associated with that employee, right? So in this example, I'm focused on one employee. I can see their, head count, Social Security, taxes, Medicare, all the things that are important, right? The commissions that they have, bonuses, as well as employees that need to be allocated. You notice here, William Clark is allocated across multiple departments. It could be multiple projects across percentages, FTE percentages. It's really up to you. We've got some assumption tables. Actually, let's take a look at one here. It could be global in nature, but this one's very specific. Obviously, global is pretty straightforward. This one is, based on the United States. We have different rates. If you got currencies, we can handle that. We can roll it up at the local currency and then roll it up to USD at the top level, all the taxes, all the maximums, etc. So very high level on personnel. I know we can spend a lot more time on that, but kind of give you some quick previews. And lastly, this one here is a different perspective on revenue planning. We've got a lot of different ways to do revenue planning, but I think the key here is really about its slice and dice capability. So if I wanted to see gross revenue by product, I can manipulate that, slice and dice it, give you more of an analytical perspective. A lot of dimensional aspects. In this case, I've got it by customer, I've got it by products. I can have it by any type of dimensions. I can even get granular down to the size and colors of the products I'm selling, right? So again, so more of an analytical perspective, but overall kind of give you a sense of the power behind the application. One last thing, and then I'm going to open up for questions. We talked a lot about forecasting best practices, some high-level dashboards and reporting. But one of the things that is very important is we call it kind of the last mile of the process. What it is kind of the month-end reporting. Why is it valuable? Because it's information that is now important to get and roll up to the executive team. Maybe there's board packages for them or external stakeholders. This is an area where it's extremely high value because oftentimes, working with a lot of customers in the industry, they take a long time to bring all this information together, so maybe days and weeks. So what this is simulating is really all these Excel templates here are something that you own as an organization. You come to us and say, you know what, I don't want to recreate the wheel. I have all this nicely formatted, but it's not mapped. So what we do is we'll take this information and map it to the system. So with a centralized system, and what's being mapped is really what is highlighted in blue here. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to map every single account, but if you do want to do one on off, and I'll show you how easy it is to do. In this example, we'll take travel and entertainment. We want to map that information, right? And so click of a button, I can refresh that data. So anything that's mapped to that is going to get updated. As you notice that it pulled in that information from the central system, one version of the truth. You're probably thinking, okay, great, nothing fancy. I think the value when you start doing things in terms of you close the month, right? Every organization just wants to streamline, I want to close the books earlier. I want more time to analyze, right? So in this case, I just closed the month of April and I moved it to April. You notice that the time got moved forward, right? Everything rolls forward, everything gets updated, every single account map that's rolled, all the charts, right? And tying this into something like a nice, pretty board book. Well, these take a long time to get together. The consistency of data, right? So all this gets updated. If you got variables within your paragraph, great, right? Dynamic variables, we can control that. You just worry about the verbiage. And lastly, obviously, to present this type of information, whether it's a nice, chart and graph or table of data, that simple click of a button, right, just saved you a significant amount of time as an organization, right? There's a lot of total cost of ownership, ROI, that's very, very valuable as you can spend less time on all the manipulation of data that often incurs errors, or just people just get frustrated and not doing all the right things within the finance FP&A processes. Well, now you can take all that time and flip the pendulum, right? Spend all of it on analyzing information, getting information to your stakeholders quicker. How valuable is that? Because at the end of the day, it's about running the business, right? We want to be able to be nimble, interact with the information, get information in real time. That way we can make key strategic decisions. I'll stop there. I know we have 5 minutes left. It's a quick high-level overview. I apologize if I went too quick, but overall, our goal here is to kind of get you a high-level peekaboo interest in terms of the solution. And our goal is to really help you and learn more about your business, understand what some of those challenges are, and really how we can take you guys to the next level. Back to you guys.
Okay, so Dominic, thank you so much for that somewhat in-depth demonstration of Workday Adaptive Planning. Just to close out, hopefully everyone saw how powerful, flexible, and especially how easy Adaptive is to use with the simple drag and drop functionality. If you need more information, we have plenty of resources we can make available to you, such as a one-on-one demonstration that speaks more to your needs. We can personalize that up for you. We can also offer up return on investment sessions to qualify the value of this investment. We can offer hands-on workshops. We can even get you a hands-on free trial as well. Just let us know what makes sense for you when we connect in our follow-up meeting, or reach out to me directly. We are happy to help you. We encourage you to learn more about Revelwood and our implementation approach by visiting our website at revelwood.com. While you're there, we also encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center, where we offer tips and tricks about all aspects of the planning process, technical tips on the tool, planning tips about the budgeting process, and various tips on other business aspects of the FP&A model. Thank Thanks for attending, and one of my colleagues will be reaching out for a 15-minute follow-up call. Hopefully you will take time to share your feedback and let us know how else we can help. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and thanks again for attending.